Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Calls. This is the 2024 Procore Championship Data Dive Show. We are going to change things up a little bit. I'm going to test a new way or new format, I guess, of the show, of the Data Dive Show. I am wanting to hear from you all. How do you like the new formatting in terms of not looking at prior leaderboards? And then also not going to be looking at my previous mixed condition models, just trying to save some time and really dig into more of what Fantasy National is offering. So would love to hear your all's comments throughout the show and in the comments of the video, how you all like the new layout. But we are still going to be covering a whole lot of information. We're going to be taking a look at the forecast for Napa. We're going to be looking at some short course filters, a lot of bit and POA and a putting. We have a lot to cover, so let's get into it. All statistics provided tonight and every night are from FantasyNational.com. It is the best golf analytic tool out there for your money. It's going to make you a much smarter golf gambler and a much better golf DFS player. Go check out FantasyNational.com. You will not regret it. In the description of the video, there are links to all of the social media. First off, my X and Instagram, where normally I place research every Monday around the tournament winners or previous winners of the tournament of the week. Did not do that today, partially because I was playing in my own golf scramble this morning, but there wasn't a whole lot of criteria holding together all of the former winners of the Procore / Fortinet / Safeway. But whatever research there is, I will definitely show at the end of the show this evening. So did not post any research today, but if you want to see the weekly research that I usually do on the PGA Tour, give me a follow at your preferred social media site. X is also where I place my weekly betting cards and my top player usage in the DFS contest I play. That comes out every Wednesday evening over on X. And then lastly, for social media, Gabe's handle is in the description. He writes a great article called The Fringe. It's a really good way to start your week of preparation. He continues to update you throughout the week with his own version of research. And if you are a subscriber to his article, you're going to be able to join us in his Substack chat every Wednesday evening as we continue the DFS talk over there. You really are missing out if you are not subscribed to his article, so make sure you are doing that. It is free to do, and go show him some support. Follow him over on social media. Lastly, we are live. Chat's open. Again, I want to hear from you. I would love and appreciate the feedback. Do you all like going over the prior leaderboards? Do you like seeing my previous mixed condition models from tournaments past, previous years editions? See what I got, did wrong, did right, all of that, or do you just want to dig in more to the data with Fantasy National and around Microsoft Excel with some detailed data? So we'd really appreciate your all's feedback on that. Jump into chat or leave it in the comments if you're not able to catch the show live. But in addition to any of that, have you made any wagers for the Procore? Who are you targeting early on this week? So feel free to jump in chat with your ideas and thoughts in that regard as well. So let's dig into the weeds of the data for the 2024 Procore Championship. And as promised, we're going to start this evening over at Windfinder with the extended forecast look at Napa. And while there looks like there could be some wind pickup late Wednesday afternoon, doesn't look like there's any precipitation, the actual tournament looks pristine, looks amazing. High in the upper 80s, mid to upper 80s, very, very little wind. Of course, we will update this Wednesday evening in case there is a wave development that that happens. But as of right now, it just looks like perfect conditions this week in Napa for the Procore Championship. Just not a whole lot of wind in in the forecast. Absolutely no precipitation, so nothing to look for in that regard this evening. So with that, I'm actually going to go ahead and close out a win finder. We're going to go straight into Fantasy National, and we are going to take a look at a couple of filters here. We took a long look at this last night. We'll kind of update it or refresh our memory. First thing we're going to look at, Silverado is a very short course. It is a par 72 measuring just under 7,130 yards. Very, very short course. So, on short courses, in the past 2 years, our top players in the field this week are Wyndham Clark, Bo Hostler, Taylor Montgomery, Keith Mitchell, Eric Cole, Minwoo Lee, J.J. Spawn, Corey Connors, Tyler Duncan, and Sahith Theegala, our defending champion. You will notice I do have one person starred. Saying You'll Know is not has decided not to play this week at the Procore. Russell Knox has taken his place. So if we see Saying You'll Know pop up and you see him starred, that is why he is no longer in the field this week. So there's a look at your top performers on short courses. We want to continue on down a little bit. Mav McNeely, Carson Young, Luke Clanton. Granted, it's only 4 rounds, but played very well at the Wyndham. Svensson, Sink, Brendan Todd, Jacob Bridgman, Shane Kim, Patrick Rogers, Ben Coles. There's your top 20 in terms of total performance on short courses. And then at the other end of the spectrum, players who have not played well, Tyson Alexander, Kevin Kisner, although these are the types of courses that generally suit him best. He's just not been very good the past couple of years. But generally, the shorter the course, the better for him. Bill Haas, Ryan Brim, Jimmy Walker, Sung Kang, Ben Taylor, Kevin Streelman. Interesting. Not surprising, as he's generally better when it's longer and difficult. So it makes a little bit of sense that he can struggle. That's not what I wanted to click. He struggles a little bit when it is short. You see the Wyndham was really bad this past, a couple months ago. He made the cut at the RBC Canadian, but was fairly middling. Missed the cut at the Amex. The Sony wasn't good. So he's generally better when it's longer and difficult. Max Homa, his struggles is pretty far down here in the past 2 years in terms of short course performance, but two-time champion here at Silverado, so I would ignore Max Homa at your own risk in that regard. But there's a look at some of the players who have not played well on short courses. Thanks to the forecast, with there being very, very little wind, I am starting to get a little bit more comfortable thinking about using this easy to par filter. So when rounds have been easy relative to par in the past 2 years, our top performers have been Chan Kim, Luke Clanton, Wyndham Clark, Hayden Springer, Sahith Theegala, Chesson Hadley, Minwoo Lee, Patrick Rogers, Bo Hostler, and Michael Kim. There's your top 10. Rico Hoey, Tom Hoagie, Keith Mitchell, Mav McNeely, and Adam Svensson round out your top 15. And then the worst players when it's been easy: Brim, Nick Watney, again Kevin Kisner, Trainer, Herman, Sung Kang, Jonathan Bird, Paul Barjon, Bill Haas, Snedeker, Hodges, and so on down there. We are going to clear any filters, and let's take a quick look. I'll bring up the course breakdown in case we want to look at that. I mentioned how we weren't going to go we weren't going to look at previous years' leaderboards. I don't want to go too much in depth into it, but I do have last year's up just in case we want to take a quick reference. And a reminder that Silverado really, really highlights short game. Putting especially, but for our players that finished in the top 10, the around the green outweighed the off the tee. Our winner last year was exactly field even in terms of off the tee. Off the tee is not necessarily mandatory here. You see the around the green play. I mean, every single player inside the top 12, top 13, positive in around the green, and with the approach as well. So when we take a look at this year's field, I'm kind of debating with myself on the time frame of the metrics that I want to look at, because most of these players, I say most, players like Wyndham Clark and Max Homa haven't been off, or Corey Connors, they haven't been off as long as most of these others. Most of these players haven't played, at least on the PGA Tour, for a month. So, you know, a little bit of rust could set in, and all of that. So I'm wondering if we want to take a look at the past 6 months as opposed to 3. I can see an argument for both. I am going to stick with 3 months for now. And if that changes come Wednesday night in the mixed condition model, I'll let you know then as to my reasoning why. But let's take a look at some strokes gained metrics in the past 3 months. We're not going to put a lot of emphasis in off the tee, but your top off the tee players in the past 3 months: Minwoo Lee, Luke Clanton, Cam Champ, Patrick Fishburne, Johnny Vegas, Carson Young, Paul Barjon, Hayden Springer, Sam Stevens, and Kevin Doherty. Remember, Cam Champ did win this. I believe it was back in 2019. Not confident win, but I do know he is a former winner. Yeah, 2019. Doing what he does best, you know, off the tee and with a lot of distance, but has really struggled here since. As you can see, 3 missed cuts since winning. So not too worried about putting a lot of emphasis in off the tee this week. Like I said, I think I'm more so focused on the short game aspect. But for your information, there is the leaders in off the tee, or the best performers in off the tee the past 3 months. We definitely aren't going to ignore the approach. Still a very, very integral part of Silverado and professional golf in general. So your top approach players in the past 3 months: Doug Gim, J.J. Spawn, Luke Clanton, Keith Mitchell, Austin Smotherman, Roger Sloan, Johnny Vegas, Chan Kim, Ches Reavie, and Henrik Norlander. But really, what I'm wanting to see here, let's turn our attention to the short game, and just the emphasis that Silverado places on short game, especially the putting, but especially around the green as well. But really highlighting the putting. Your top around the green players in the past 3 months: Webb Simpson, Adams Vinson, Daniel Berger, C.T. Pan, Vincent Whaley, Eric Cole, Mav McNeely, Mackenzie Hughes, Pat Kazire, and Ryan Moore. And then we are going to really expand this time frame here, go to the past 2 years as we gather all of the Bent and Poa Annua putting. This is Castle Pines, this year's BMW Championship, Detroit, host of the Rocket Mortgage, Oakdale, which was the host of the RBC Canadian last year, but still within that 2-year time frame that we want to make sure we look at putting there. Of course, where we are this week, and Silverado. I'm actually going to click both just to make sure we get last year's and the historical Fortinet tournaments in here. And then lastly is TBC River Highlands, host of the Travelers, is also Bent and Poa Annua. We're going to add those courses. Your top putters on Bent and Poa annua in the past 2 years have been Taylor Montgomery, Wyndham Clark, Justin Lauer, Minwoo Lee, Roger Sloan, Chesson Hadley, Rico Hoey, Blaine Hale, Kelly Craft, and Dylan Wu. Make sure you take a couple of these players with a grain of salt, like Rico Hoey. It's only one tournament where he putt pretty darn well at the Rocket Mortgage. Blaine Hale putt really well at the Rocket Mortgage. So, make sure you're being realistic there. This is a very, very small sample size with these two players in particular, but they have at least shown the ability to putt on this surface. And these players are going to be boosted pretty considerably in my rankings come Wednesday night. I think I'm going to put a decent amount of emphasis on the putting. Anything else here that catches my eye before we move on to some more detailed data? Not particularly. You could make an argument, I suppose, to look at maybe calm wind filter or maybe the par 72 filter, but I think that's a pretty good start to the evening. Taking a look at these strokes gained metrics here, especially the short game with Silverado emphasizing that. Again, going to change up the format that I normally do with the Data Dive show. So instead of continuing on in Fantasy National, I'm actually going to take us to Microsoft Excel very, very quickly. And we're going to take a look at the detailed data. I usually save this for, towards the end of the show, but I think this is a pretty good kind of start to the evening, if you will, to take a look at where a lot of these strokes gained values come in for the players that traditionally finish at the top of the leaderboard here at Silverado. So from 2019 to 2023, these are the values for the players that finished in the top 30 and ties. So you can see in these 5 years just the extreme amount of emphasis in putting, and we had a pretty low outlier last year. So if we were to remove that outlier, this value is now 16 to 17% more important than the average full field course. You saw that number with the around the green, even with a low outlier last year in the around the green. That number is about 30 to 33% more important than the average full field course. The around the green contributes a whole lot around Silverado. You can see the around the green is not only outweighing the off the tee, it's outweighing it by a decent bit, even with this huge outlier. So if we remove that and we remove the low outlier, because the off the tee did matter more than the around the green last year, it starts to get pretty significant in terms of what usually plays well around Silverado. The approach has been pretty darn consistent with the exception of 2020 when we had a decently high outlier. So what this is saying is that for the players that have finished in the top 30 traditionally, it has been mostly a short game course, a lot of putting, little bit of approach. The approach has been very, very consistent in how much it's been important. We've had a couple of years where off the tee mattered and a couple of years where it really, really didn't. So I'm going to go with the historical averages here and think that the around the green is going to play more than the off the tee. We move to driving and fairways and greens. Driving, not a factor. The average driving distance is about an 8. In fact, I'll double check. Yeah, it's an 8.2 across all full field course averages on the PGA Tour. You see, even for the players that finished in the top 30, both years Max Homa won, distance was a negative factor. You didn't need it at all. And every single year it's been lower than the full field average. So distance is not a big thing. We take a look at fairways. That's not really a big number. In fact, it's right at average. Good drives is about 4%. Greens is 24% less important. These greens are really, really easy to hit. That's a very, very low number. So I'm thinking it might be the good drives gained, just to make sure that the players are able to hit the green from the rough, because the players are going to be in the rough this week. These fairways are technically some of the hardest to hit, but that's just because the players don't care to be in the rough. They just don't. It is not difficult to play out of. Not very thick, so players just generally hit driver when they can, and I want to make sure that players are able to hit the green still from the rough. So probably looking at good drives gained here in this page view. Definitely not distance. Fairways, yes, they were the same as, or average with the other full field courses. I don't feel fairways is all that important. Thinking more so good drives, and these greens are so easy to hit. And look how volatile they've been the past 2 years anyway. 3.12 and then a 0.5. So not a whole lot there. It is a very low outlier. So if we remove that, it drops down to about 10% less important. So still nothing that we need to spend a lot of time on. So yeah, we're going to be looking at good drives in this page view. Moving to scoring. It was interesting last night that the majority of the players that have played the best historically year over year at Silverado were doing it more so in the bogey avoidance. But that's not panning out here, as the birdies gained is the higher number. I mean, both of these are very, very low outliers, so you can just remove them both. So it doesn't really affect the totals too much, since both of them were extremely low outliers. Against the full field course average, they're both less. Birdies are just closer to average, which is interesting because, I spent last night talking about how the data was kind of all over the place, but showing that the bogey avoidance was possibly the more consistent and spike performance. That is not what it is showing here. It looks like the birdies gained is actually the more spike performance, which would make sense because Silverado tends to be on the easier side in terms of difficulty. Not a whole lot of eagles. Despite it being pretty easy, there's just a lot of birdies, not a whole lot of eagles. A few doubles, but nothing that we need to really concern ourselves with. So the more I'm thinking about it, since the data seems to be rather inconsistent among the players who perform the best and then just the general top 30, this might be an opportunities gained type of week, especially with so much putting. It would make sense that we would want to look at the players who just flat out give themselves the most opportunities. So I'm kind of liking that idea moving forward this evening. Might look at some birdies gained, but more so I'm thinking probably opportunities, since neither of these are really jumping off the page as being the dominant one we want to look at. The real interesting part of the detailed data here, we can take a look at par 3s, 4s, and 5s and figure out exactly what range in each of those holes by par that we want to focus on. So even though 3 of the 4 par 3s fall to this range, you see that it really doesn't contribute a whole lot in terms of the totality of par 3s. It's less than half. When they move pins and tees around, the 200 to 225 actually contributes quite a bit as well. Now, historically, the 175 to 200 has been more than the 200 to 225, but it's not by a whole lot, as you can see here. So anything we do with par threes would probably be total. Although I could understand the argument if you wanted to put a small percentage in each of these two. But I don't think that's correct. I think we're just going to look at total par threes this week at Silverado. Moving into par fours, much different story. When the par fours are a 3.7 and more than half, really about 60 to 65% of the strokes gained total are in the 400 to 450, we're going to be isolating this range of par fours pretty heavily. And it makes sense because 6 of the 10 par fours fall to this range, at least on the scorecard. But the data is also showing that or bearing that out, that this is the most important range of par fours, 2.1 out of a 3.7. And then the par fives are heavily outweighing the par threes. You see 2.1 in the par fives versus a 1.2 in the par threes. So the par fives definitely get taken advantage of. We're not going to ignore the par fives this week. They've been very consistent as well in how important they are. As a statistician, I love that. Look at that. 2.09, 2.09, 2.09. 3 of the 5 years they have played to this same exact importance. Again, as a statistician, I love consistency. So that's what we're looking at there. And it looks like we would want to put all of our emphasis in the 550 to 600. Which, again, makes sense because 3 of the 4 par 5s fall to that range as well. And they have outweighed the 500 to 550 by a pretty significant margin the past 4 years. Like, if we remove this year, I wonder how that changes. Yeah, it's more than triple. So looking like we want to focus on the 550 to 600 range, focus on the 400 to 450 range, maybe a little in the 350 to 4. Really, as I was talking about with the par threes, how you could make an argument to look at these two ranges. Really, in the par fours, it really is just about these two ranges. I mean, look how they didn't even play less than 350 yards last year, and the times that they par fours do measure over 450 yards, they don't contribute a whole lot in terms of strokes gained. So really, it is about just these two ranges of par fours. Last thing I want to show you before we jump back to Fantasy National. Let's take a look at proximity, and I know the raw numbers don't mean a whole lot. So let's go to the comparison. And despite that the numbers don't look like they're much, I want you to take a look at compared to other full field events on the PGA Tour. Look how much the 75 to 125 matter compared to others. So we might take a look at some close proximities this evening. I'm still hesitant to put it in the mixed condition model for this week, but we can at least take a look at it this evening thanks to what the data is showing here. So there is a look at some very, very detailed data around Silverado and where all of the strokes gained are coming from. So now we'll jump back to Fantasy National and we'll go through the various pages. We did strokes gained. So now let's go into fairways and greens. And as we talked about, really the only thing we're kind of interested in this page view is good drives. Really. Now you can take a look at good drives when it's easy. Good drives gained when it's short would make a lot of sense. So let's do that. We will look at last 36 rounds or 2 years on short courses, defined as less than 7,200 per Fantasy National. Your top good drives gained players on short courses past couple of years: J.J. Spawn, Ches Reavie, Zach Blair, Dylan Wu, Joel Damon, Russell Knox, Hayden Buckley, Kelly Craft, Carson Young, Lucas Glover. Okay. If we remove that filter, just how good has Tagala and Max Homa been? Just our two most recent champions here at Silverado. Just kind of interested on where they've been in that regard. Tagala, 45th, not terrible. Whoops. Max Homa, not as good. He's been atrocious with the driver lately, so that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, so I'm just looking at good drives gained really in this page view. You could argue some scrambling. If around the green matters, then it would make perhaps some sense to take a look at some scrambling. So in the past 3 months, your top scramblers in the field this week have been Wyndham Clark, Rico Hoey, Chan Kim, Russell Knox, Dylan Wu, Roger Sloan, Sahith Tagala, Brennan Todd, Martin Laird, and Max Homa. All right, we're going to remove this, and we're going to take a look at scoring. Might take a look at birdies are better, but really I'm going to start with opportunities. And I am going to lean into this easy relative to par filter, even though the Fortinet, now Procore, hasn't been easy the past couple of years. You see 3 rounds of average last year. Max Homa's win had 3, his second win had 3 of the 4 rounds played at average. With that forecast and whatnot, and this field is a little bit stronger than normal for the first event of the FedEx Fall, I'm starting to lean into this easy relative to par filter a little bit more. So, in the past 2 years, your top opportunities gained players when rounds have been easy relative to par: Joel Damon, Tom Hoagie, Wyndham Clark, Luke Clanton, Troy Merritt, Adam Shank, Doug Gim, Pat Gazire, Michael Thorbjornsen, and Rico Hoey. We'll take a look at birdies are better. Eagles don't happen a whole lot, but they aren't. They do happen a little bit. So your top birdies are better gained players when rounds are easy: Eric Cole, Chan Kim, Luke Clanton, S.H. Kim, Hayden Springer, Sahith Tagala, Sam Ryder, Kevin Chappell, Marty Doe or Zaiching Doe, and Pearson Cootie. And as I was going through that, it actually makes a whole lot of sense to maybe look at these things on short courses as well. So your top opportunities gained players on short courses the past couple of years. Again, Tom Hoagie, Chandler Phillips, Nick Hardy, Luke Clanton, Troy Merritt, Alex Smalley, Corey Connors, Matt McNeely, Trace Crow, Brandon Wu. Top birdies are better gained players: Cole, Taylor Montgomery, Clark, Chandler Phillips, Bo Hostler, Trace Crow, Tom Hoagie, Matt McNeely, Luke Clanton, Keith Mitchell. All right, we're going to go into the pars threes. Actually, no. Let's go to proximity. I do want to look at the 75 to 125 proximities. So we're going to get a narrow view of this. The last 3 months or 24 rounds. Who's been the best at the very short proximities? The 2 furthest over here to the right. I'll sort on the 75 to 100 first. But really, Kevin Streelman has been really, really good at these short proximities. Cody Gribble, Carl Yuan, 6th and 10th, Wyndham Clark, Doug Gim, K.H. Lee, interestingly enough, has been very good with the 75 to 125 range the past 3 months. Tom Hoagie, Roger Sloan, Jonathan Bird. Yeah, so give those players a decent little boost, I suppose. There's the sorted by 75 to 100, and then sorted on 100 to 125. Okay, we will now go to par 3s. And really, we're just going to be looking at these two ranges, 175 to 200, 200 to 225. So I'll sort on the par 3s just in general, but players like Keith Mitchell and David Skins, Johnny Vegas to a lesser extent, 34th and 16th. Sam Stevens to a lesser extent, 14th and 39th. Mav McNeely, 15th and 17th on these par 3s. Eric Cole, 5th and 29th. Pearson Cootie. So make sure you pay attention to those players, as they have been good in the past 24 rounds at those length of par 3s. In fact, let's extend this. I want all of the 2024 season. I know that's going back a lot, but remember, not every course has par 3s that measure to these lengths. So in the entirety of 2024, Skins, Keith Mitchell, Badley is okay. Grayson Sigg is very good, 6th and 12th in the entirety of 2024. Matt McNeely again, Harris English to a lesser extent, 20th and 18th. Oh, saying you'll know, he's not in the tournament, so scratch that. Tommy Dane, maybe? Par 3s won't have a whole lot. We're really focused on the par 4s and the par 5s. So we'll look at par 4s. Again, looking at the 400 to 450, maybe the 350 to 400. But we're really looking at mostly this 400 to 450 range. So your top performers on par 4s, 400 to 450 yards in the 2024 season or calendar year, from the Century to the Tour Championship: Andrew Putnam, Justin Lauer, Taylor Montgomery, Roger Sloan, Mac Meisner, Adams Vinson, Luke Clanton, Alex Smalley, C.T. Pan, Ben Silverman. Putnam, put an asterisk next to, because he's also good on the shorter par 4s. C.T. Pan, Ben Silverman, Chan Kim, 7th and 13th, very, very strong. Matt Kuchar, Wyndham Clark, 5th and 27th, very strong. So give these players, a decent boost in your considerations for wagers or in your early lineup constructions, as we're going to have a lot of emphasis on this 400 to 450, I think. And to round this out, round this portion of the show out, par 5s, 550 to 600 yards, all of 2024. Sahith Theegala, Eric Cole, Bo Hostler, Mackenzie Hughes, Keith Mitchell, Minwoo Lee, Corey Connors, Hayden Springer, Johnny Vegas, Sam Stevens. This is going to have a decent amount of weight, considering how much we saw from Microsoft Excel, how much the par 5s contribute to success here at Silverado. Again, let me know what you think of the change in the format, taking a pretty in-depth look at the detailed data and then coming into Fantasy National. But as we customarily do, we're going to round the show out with the early look file, and I'll also show you, whatever small amounts of research tied some of the winners together, but it really wasn't much to put onto social media. Again, reminder that any player highlighted in orange is an alternate at the moment. So this is performance specifically at Silverado 2019, 2020, 21, 22, and 23. So you got Sahith Theegala, your defending champion, Max Homa, who's also played very, very well. Let's see who's been great at the various metrics that have performed well year over year here at Silverado. So we're going to start with the approach. even though it's not, even though I've been talking, all night and a lot of last night about, the short game here, you don't want to ignore the approach. So, your top approach players specifically at Silverado the past 5 years. Ches Reavie, 4 for 5. Been very good with his irons. James Hahn. Russell Knox, who just got into the field today. So, yes, he is a ball striker, but might want to take a look at Russell Knox. Has been hitting his irons pretty well here, at least. Connors, that's his game. Sink a little bit. Brendan Todd. Sam Ryder doesn't have a lot in terms of elite performance to show for it, but he's hit his irons well. You see what the culprit is here. Grayson Sigg, 3 for 3. Putnam, been okay with the irons. Hoagie, again, that's kind of his game. Interesting with KH Lee. Hadley. Okay. Definitely don't want to ignore the around the green or the putting, so we're going to look at both of those. Your best around the green players at Silverado the past 5 years. Bud Cauley, it's only twice, but he's been very good around the green. Roger Sloan, not a whole lot in terms of performance, but he's been very good around the green. Svensson, 2 for 2. There's Kuchar. Look at all that prowess in the short game. And then look at his performance. So, a lot to be considered there. Aaron Baddeley, interesting. Always known for his world-class short game. Joel Damon, 1 for 4. Not putting very well. There's Hostler. Nick Watney, an interesting name, 4 for 5. There's Sahith Theegala. Averaging, gaining 4.5 on the greens. That's ridiculous. Nick Taylor, very good putter and short game player. Russell Knox, 4 for 4. Putnam, 3 for 4. Your top putters at Silverado. Definitely want to take a look at this. Who putts these greens very well? S.H. Kim is 2 for 2, so it's a smaller sample size, but he's been very good on these greens. Taylor Montgomery, just a very, very good putter. There's Sahith Theegala, Bo Hostler, Brendan Todd, Max Homa, Matt Kuchar. Struman's putt well here. Something to take a note. Zach Blair, very good putter. Willett has been very good here. Nick Taylor. Mac Hughes to a lesser extent, but he's putt well. English is 2 for 2. Yeah. McNeely, 2 for 4. Okay. Let's take a look at... I'm just going to go ahead and jump all the way to the par 4s and par 5s. I'm not, Good drives gained is the one that matters the most in that page view, but I don't know how much I'm actually going to put weight into the mixed condition model. So let's just take a look at these par 4s, 400 to 450. Who's been playing them the best? S.H. Kim. There's Danny Willett, 2 runner-ups. Nick Taylor, who's been pretty good here. 2-time champ Max Homa, Matt Kuchar. Interesting with Montgomery. He's done very well from that range of par 4s. There's Putnam, Shelton. Robbie Shelton's been good at that range. Rogers is 3 for 4 here. James Hahn's 3 for 4. Ben Taylor's 3 for 4. Interesting. Grayson Sigg. Okay. And then we'll take a look at the par 5s, particularly 550 to 600. Berger, only 1 time. Harris English again. There's 2-time champ Max Homa. Cauley. Sahith, defending champion. Joseph Bramlett's 2 for 3. Not a lot in terms of upper finishes, but he's taking advantage of the par 5s at least. Matt McNeely. Brendan Todd again. Kuchar again. Yep. All right, I'm going to sort this on the best average finishes. And we're going to finish the show off with whatever small amounts of research I can show you. I'm going to start with the winner matrix. So this is performance at Silverado historically before they won. So you see Sahith Theegala wins last year. He top 10 the year prior. He had generally just had a lot of success. Max Homa. He made the cut a couple of times. Didn't play it in 2020, then wins. And then wins again. So at least he had a modicum of success. Nothing to the level of Sahith Theegala, but at least a modicum of success. Now Stuart Sink's an outlier here. He hadn't played it for 3 years. Played it once and missed the cut, and then wins in 2020. Again, a little bit of an outlier. Even Cameron Champ had a top 25 the year prior to him winning. So what I would gather, or what I would take away from this, is that the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 7 of your last 8 champions at Silverado at least made the cut their prior time playing at Silverado. Doesn't have to be a whole lot of success. Again, look at Max Homa. Look at Kevin Tway. Didn't have much success at all and then wins. But they at least had shown the ability to make the cut at Silverado. And recently. Or at least in their most recent time played. So that was the first thing I kind of noticed. In terms of a pattern of previous winners. As far as their most recent start, only one player played in the Tour Championship. That was Max Homa. Otherwise, they'd had quite a bit of time off. Mostly the BMW. 2020 champion Stuart Sink didn't even make the playoffs. Sanderson, this is a wonky year where the Sanderson Farms actually moved in front of the Fortinet that year. But most of these players, made the playoffs, but didn't get all the way to the Tour Championship. Again, Max Homa is the outlier there. So perhaps you stay away from Connors. Maybe you stay away from Clark if that pattern holds. But you probably want somebody who hasn't had a whole lot of time off. Probably played in the BMW or played in the St. Jude. Things of that nature. Otherwise, there wasn't a whole lot that kept that kept these players together in terms of form or anything like that. Sahith Theegala, couple of top 15s in the playoffs, and then Max Homa had played well in the playoffs, but the first year Max Homa was really bad in the playoffs. Stuart Sink didn't make the playoffs. Cameron Champ, top 25 is one of the 2 events. So there wasn't a whole lot holding things together. Just really kind of those 2 things. The fact that they had made the cut their previous time and played in the playoffs, but didn't make it all the way to the Tour Championship, and it wasn't a narrow enough of a list to list it on social media. But that is what I have for you all in terms of the Data Dive show for the Procore Championship. I want to thank you all for tuning in, watching, listening, and supporting the channel. I always appreciate it. Love what I do, taking a very in-depth look at golf statistics, giving you a statistician and data analyst view of what he sees, trying to help us all win a little bit of money in the process. A reminder that I will be live Wednesday night for the DFS Tactics show, as we have 7 or 8 events in the FedEx Fall to finalize our 2024 year and get prepared for 2025. So thanks again for all the support. For all the wagers you've made so far this week for the Procore Championship, for all the wagers you're thinking about making this week for the Procore Championship. And until I see you Wednesday night for the DFS Tactics show, may all your bets be profitable.